So our first presenter today is Adaliz Cruz. She is in her final year of her Master's in Library and Information Science at Simmons University in Boston. She received her BM in Applied Music in 2018 from the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico. She currently works at Simmons University's Beatley Library as a reference and ILL student worker, as well as at Bain & Company as the Information Services Assistant for the Boston, Toronto, and New York offices. She is the current president for the student chapter of the Special Libraries Association. Upon graduation, Adaliz hopes to work as a reference and instruction librarian, preferably in a music library.
Hi, good morning still. Yes, my name is Adaliz, and this is my presentation, Music, the Weapon of Choice. I would like to thank my dad for naming it. So, history was made last summer in Puerto Rico, for those of you who didn't know, because the American news outlets didn't do a good job of covering it. With little more than creativity and equipped with every instrument possible, a corrupt government official and many of his closest allies were overthrown from power with no casualties and very minor property damage. I was here. I was working on my independent study. I'm doing a research on Puerto Rican and Latin American urban genres and why they should be included in music libraries. But I couldn't keep my mind off the situation back home, even more so when my closest friends and my family were participating in these big protests, and even more so when I paid attention to the music that was surrounding every protest. And we'll go through a recap of all the different genres that were used. And so music has always been a part of protest. We know this. There have been books, dissertations, theses, and in Puerto Rico it is no different. But before starting on the protests of this summer, I am going to show you how music has been used in Puerto Rican social change and civic action. And we start off with plena. Plena is music of the people. Music of the people. It is sort of a sung newspaper, and this particular song is called Lone Star, and it talks about nationalism. Borinquen is another name for Puerto Rico. It is what our indigenous people, the Taínos, used to call it. Now we go to a different type of plena. While the last one was using anti-American sentiments, this is more of in-island classism and the city superiority complex, where the people from San Juan and the metro area would call us and everybody who's not in there, oh, you're from the island, or you're from the other part, and then the singer is saying, isn't Puerto Rico an island or an archipelago? Aren't we all from the island? We go over to salsa, and salsa has always been heavy on the socio-political commentary. This particular song is called The Abolition, and it talks about racial inequality in Latin America. long ago. It is when the FBI murdered a very famous nationalist leader in the island, and this song is called Dear FBI. But the lyrics are good. Okay. Next we go over to reggaeton. Usually, or almost always, reggaeton singers are also rap singers, and there's a lot of crossover. And this is called Censor Me for Being a Rapper. It is about the criminalization of the urban genre, which also overlaps with racism and colorism. I don't know if it's going to play. That's what's happening. Next we go over to pop music, and while admittedly this particular song is also a plena, Ile is usually known for her indie pop music styles, and this song is called Nye Nye Nye. It talks about political corruption in the island. Many people actually said that this album was prophetic because it came out early 2019, and it very closely mirrors what happened during the protests. This album is called Colonized, and it is a direct commentary against colonialism and the federal control board that was imposed upon the people of Puerto Rico. And now, music has elevated people into power. Many times and almost always, politicians will use the song that will play throughout their campaigns and their rallies. And our story begins with Pedro Rosselló. During and after his political campaign, he would often dance to the Macarena, to the point where, in my opinion, the Rosselló name will forever be associated with the Macarena. During his time in office, among other things, he was known for criminalizing the urban genre, which is an umbrella term of any rap, reggaeton, any sort of that genre. His administration raided CD stores and studios, and they arrested many people for just being part or associated with the genre without even having crimes associated to them. Which is his son. Here we have him, the former first lady, and the commissioner, the resident commissioner, dancing to the very music that his dad criminalized during his time in office. They are dancing along to Daddy Yankee's Dura, which is another artist that was very highly criminalized by his dad. And they are celebrating the fact that the resident commissioner claimed to be the best, or the Dura, because she brought the largest amount of federal funds to the island after the hurricane. All of my reggaeton songs seem to be censored today. But little did they know that everything that is done in secret and hiding will inevitably come to light. And it was the summer of 2019 that the Telegram chats from Ricardo Rosselló and his closest circle were made public by the Puerto Rico Center for Investigative Journalism. And these chats were very homophobic in nature, they were sexist, they talked about their corruption, and they also talked about how they intentionally mismanaged funds during the hurricane so that they could ensure themselves re-election. This led to around 12 days of protests, which, to be fair, are still going. The media called it Chatgate, although it is more commonly known as hashtag Ricky Renuncia or hashtag Ricky Resign. And we'll take a look into the music broken out by genre, not necessarily by timeline. So first of all, we have a minute of silence. All music has silence, and this is for the people who did not survive the hurricane due to the government's negligence. Next we have percussive. This is one type of peaceful protest that everybody can participate, because every night at 8 p.m. from the comfort of your own house, you would take out your best pot and you would just start banging it for around 10 minutes. It is designed to be annoying, and it is very, very annoying. This is an apartment complex in the metro area, not Torrey. Next we got chanting, and you might say, but every protest has chanting. And I'm like, yes, this is what I call standard protest chanting with a kick. Because underneath all the chanting is a very steady drum rhythm going. is on my drive.
Yeah, it's down to the.
Yeah. Anyways. So we have bomba, which comes from our African heritage. It is a conversation between the drums and the dancer, and the drums are actually following whatever the dancer is doing. It is. It is a sort of some newspaper, and it is always present during protests because of the instrumentation. It's very simple. It's just a set of 3 drums called pleneras or banderos, and these are the people marching through the streets of Old San Juan. They paralyzed the city, and they quote unquote marched throughout the city. Which is mountain folk music. It is comes from the center of the island, and it is very European in nature. It is a set of improvised rhymes. The singer usually doesn't know what they're going to be rhyming to. They are provided that at the event, and then they make up their set of rhymes as they go along. And if you look in the background, there's actually a sign language interpreter. Classical music, and this is because it was usually played in ballrooms for the high society, what I call the fancy people would congregate to play their cards and eat their fancy meals and listen to danza. Fun fact, the Puerto Rican national anthem is a danza, And this night, the protesters decided that they would sing the national anthem, but that they would sing the original national anthem, which is now called the Revolutionary National Anthem.
There's a conspiracy.
Next, we have traditional folk music. This is one of the various instances where traditional songs were sung as a form of protest, and this is called En Mi Viejo San Juan, or In My Old San Juan. It is the homesick anthem because it was written in World War II by a deployed soldier, and hopefully we'll hear that someone in the crowd actually yells out, "This is for all the people who were forced to leave because of this government." Now, bolero is not technically a Puerto Rican genre. It came from Cuba, but it is a Latin American type of genre because it just moved over from country to country. There are usually slow ballads, and this particular song is called Beautiful, and it is an autonomistic and patriotic view on the beauties of Puerto Rico. Then we have the choral music. This happened a few nights that there was a big call for if you were part of a choir or you just wanted to be part of a choir. They got together and they sang traditional choir repertoire. In this case, it's another danza, and it talks about, again, the beauties of Puerto Rico. Yeah. Next we have salsa, which is another transnational genre. Every Latin American country claims it as their own, but that is because it has very strong Afro-Cuban musical influences, but then Puerto Rican, Panamanian, Dominican, and other Latin American artists helped develop it in New York. So yes, it is a Puerto Rican genre, but it is also a Cuban genre, Panamanian, Dominican, but it's also New Yorker. It also became sort of a some newspaper, and it very highly contributed to the counterculture movement in the United States in the 60s and 70s.
Maybe you could send us the links then.
Yep, I can share the presentation. I was really hoping this one played. Because this is parody music, and Los Rivera Destino are a group of 3 friends who parody on music thought of as what our grandparents listened to. So they took a very popular trap song called Te Boté and they covered it as a bolero. They also covered Daddy Yankee's Dura as a cha-cha-cha. And they use the same lyrics and everything. It's just a different genre. And his name was Ricardo. Yeah. I can share presentation. And next we have urban music, which is an umbrella term for all those genres that are not going to get as much airplay on radio stations as like pop or other mainstream music. We know that it was very highly criminalized back during Cruz Senior's day in office, and this is what I like to think was the song of the protest, because it really ignited the spark that was already there, and it took it to a whole other level. And this was written, produced, and recorded in 24 hours. The singers Bad Bunny, Ile, and Presidente were all in different parts of the world. They just sent each other their tracks and their additions to the song. And it was released to YouTube because they wanted it to be freely accessible for everyone. It is still not on every music streaming platform. Take a moment to read the lyrics. And the last form of protest was El Perreo Combativo. This was the name of the event, not the song, and it is the most controversial protest because perreo means doggy style dancing, usually it's a reggaeton, which we know has always been criminalized because it is thought of as something that the lower classes like, or there is a lot of racism and classism involved. And it was also set in front of a church landmark, very famous church landmarks. Not a lot of people were happy that this happened, but coincidentally, it was only coincidentally, this was the same night that the governor resigned. So the people were saying that the governor could not handle the people's perreo. But it was very coincidental. So what happens after? I don't know if this will play. I was hoping to let it run through because it really captures what happened during and after the governor's resignation. Let's see. Is it here? We can flip it over. That's fine. You win some, so that's fine. I was nervous, but now that everything's not going to go wrong with it, it's fine.
The content. The content is the best part, and that's there.
Thank you. It's a learning experience.
Yep.
But it wasn't just music. These protests were called by the media to be creative because it was the. Can we connect again?
Try it.
Thank you. Okay, because there was dance protests, there was dancing in the rain, there was body art, protesting in traditional garb. Thank you. This was one of my favorites because every night at 11 p.m., mysteriously, the protests were deemed as unconstitutional anymore, and that's when the real quote-unquote violence started. And so the protesters said, everyone at 10 p.m., please bring your favorite children's book because we are going to read bedtime stories to the Constitution because they put her to bed at 11 p.m. There was kayaking protests, the bride on her wedding day, acrobats, horseback rides, coffee art, yoga at the Capitolio. There were motorcycle protests. There were more that I forget. Oh, there was some scuba divers protested underwater. People from around the world were just posting on social media. And in conclusion, many people point to the fact that Puerto Rico changed. This was the first time in history, the history of the island, that everybody has come together and has united for one cause. Because it was everybody from different political ideologies, age differences, religion, socioeconomic standpoints. Everybody just came together and says he needs to go. And it's still happening. There have been smaller protests for the current governor, Wanda Vasquez. There's also been protests because the Maritime Transit Authority just doesn't work in Vieques. And we also saw a lot of Latin American solidarity with people from other Latin American countries supporting the protests in Puerto Rico, and in turn, we have been supporting the protests that have been going on in Chile and in Ecuador recently, and I don't know if this is going to play. No, it's not. It has a good ending shot. You're supposed to be playing the notes that intro to the Puerto Rican national anthems. Thank you.
market for traditional music libraries collecting this music. And in your presentation, you use a lot of informal field recordings. So how would you suggest that music librarians collect this music and find it and obtain it?
Right. The reason why it is a lot of informal and like social media posting, because it was not documented other than the people at the moment. As I said, the news outlets just did a terrible job of covering it. And what I have been doing for my independent study is having libraries collect not the music per se, but materials that could facilitate the research and the study of this music. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for example, for my independent study, I have been forced to do a lot of interlibrary loan, or sometimes just requesting that my library purchase things because they're just not available. Or in some cases, I have been finding alternative ways to view stuff.
How did your friends and family in Puerto Rico participate, and how did they feel about what happened and what's going on?
I have a very different spectrum of friends and family in political views. So my very, I'm not going to say anti-American, but my very pro-independent friends were happy that this was finally happening, and they were all into the protest. My brother attended some protests in the Capitol, while my parents, who are very nebulous in what their political standing is, I don't really know. They participated in some of the simpler protests back home. So if the screen is Puerto Rico and the northeast side is San Juan, I'm from the total west side of that. So they participated in those simpler, not as riotous, quote unquote, and a lot of the banging of the pots.
If you were to compare it to the U.S. and how we have problems with our leaders today, do you think that this guy was even more corrupt, or is it because it's such a small island that everybody really just came together? What made you all come together so well?
I was reading, I think it was a newspaper article, or maybe it was a podcast that pointed to the fact that Puerto Rico has never had a government that isn't corrupt. Ever since it was colonized by the Spanish and later by the U.S., every single government has been corrupt, but this is the first time we have tangible proof and not just gut instinct or circumstantial evidence.
It's a lot of practice.
Yeah, a lot of finally, they admitted to it. Do we want to go back to anything?
I think you did the last one, maybe.
I'm just curious whether in Boston, you've been part of the Boston Puerto Rican community. I don't know how large it is. Being in Simmons, and you've been able to sort of coalesce around what's going on in Puerto Rico, and if there's been any of the similar kind of looking here with music. Because I know you have Caribbean events and so forth, but I was just wondering how you stay connected here.
Actually, the protest helped me find Puerto Rican people. I know a lot of Dominicans, but during these protests was when I started seeing events pop up on my Facebook that said Puerto Ricos United, Puerto Ricanos United, or something. That's where I found my people.
That's great.
Yeah. You wanted to know the last?
Maybe the last.
your field recordings are posted on YouTube, it look like?
Some of
So
them.
if someone wanted to search for more material and watch more videos, is there a way that you recommend that we like, search for that?
#FreakyRenuncia.
Okay.
Yeah, or like versions of that, like 2019 or yeah. But that's people say the newspapers say it's been dubbed Chatgate, but I have not met or read anybody that has called it Chatgate. It's always #FreakyRenuncia.
Hey, I have a question too. I was wondering, in terms of some of the videos you showed us, I'm not as familiar with some of the artists you are, so I wonder if you could speak a little bit about, whether these are recognizable musical figures to the people of Puerto Rico, and if so, do you think that made a difference in terms of, visibility and getting kind of the word out there about what's going
Yes.
on?
So there was one day, I can't remember which day, was that all the artists that are internationally known, as well as in the island, came together and led the protest. That's when the Sharpening the Knives, the protest, the song of the protest came out. And that definitely gave it more visibility, not in Latin America, as well as with Latin American people in the United States. Yeah, they really helped bring the message to a bigger stage.
Could we go back and hear the one that was created for 24 hours? I don't know if that was the one we were just talking about. I'd love to hear it.
Que te siguen brutos, pero tranqui, afilar navaja, toma un minuto, somos el ruido de la bandera de Puerto Rico con todos sus tejidos, exigiendo tu renuncia para que nadie salga herido, todo el mundo unido, no importa el color de tu partido, esto salió temprano para que te lo desayunes, la furia es el único partido que nos une.
I have a question too. You talked multiple times about certain kinds of music being criminalized. What do they actually write laws that say this kind of music cannot be performed or sold, or is it just the kind of the way that the police?
It is a little bit of public perception, but way back when Rosselló Sr. was in office, I can't tell you the specific decade because I'll ask you someone. The way that reggaeton and underground music became big was people made their own music studios, and it was self-produced, self-marketed, self-distributed. So the government didn't like that there was this unofficial economy going around. Also, there was the fact that they were very uncensored in what they were talking about. They talked about what was happening socially, but it was also very sexually explicit, and so the government went after them. They arrested people, they closed down CD and mixtape shops, and they censored people in the way that they wouldn't get airplay because it was sexually immoral, instead of going after them for like copyright reasons, because they would use famous tracks. For example, they would use the Murder, She Wrote track and then just start rapping in Spanish on top of it. Yeah.
When you were talking about gathering library materials or asking libraries to get certain things for research, what kind of material was it that you were looking for, or that you found that people didn't have, like books or the music itself, or journals about it? what kind of stuff were you looking for?
There are books out there. There are documentaries. There are also articles in journals, not necessarily journals per se, but articles in journals.
And was there maybe material in like English or in Spanish that maybe something that they didn't have? Maybe some of the libraries didn't have stuff in Spanish or what?
I've mostly been focusing on materials in English. I haven't been looking for materials in Spanish because I'm in Boston. Wouldn't make sense for me to write a paper in Spanish. And there's a really great archives in the Center for Puerto Rican Studies in, I think it's Hunter College. I'm kidding. They have a really good archives.
Does UMass Boston have anything?
I could look into the catalog, but the things I've been searching for on like WorldCat or ILO just have not been popping up. So I mean, Simmons has a good, starting to have a good collection on Puerto Rican urban music styles. Because I just keep requesting things. They keep purchasing it, so.